Centric and strategic global medical enterprise leader with over 30 years of experience. She has led across geography, cross therapy medical, clinical, patient affairs, PV and governance teams at Abbott, Cipla and GSK across India and emerging markets. Her leadership has driven 30 plus phase 2, 4 programs, 80 plus successful launches and 100% PV compliance across 33 affiliates. She has embedded medical governance principles, optimized MSL, MA teams and delivered impactful scientific communications across omni-channel platforms. An MD with training in pediatrics, internal medicine, and intensive care. She is also a mentor, teacher, prophylix speaker, and advocate of AI, precision medicine, and data science in healthcare. Now I call upon Dr. Rashmi to present her keynote.
Good morning, everybody. So first and foremost, thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this meeting and to make this presentation. And after hearing the first couple of presentations and listening to the discussions, the questions, I'm really wondering if my presentation is needed at all, because it's like I'm speaking to the converted already. Um, My background is that I'm a clinician and I worked with pharma, and I also did clinical practice in the early years of my career. And I will come to you from that perspective. But I know that a lot of what I say is already known in the room. Maybe the first few slides is already known in this room. So this is Madhubani painting. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are familiar with this painting. It's from the Mithila region of Bihar, and usually the women of the community would make these drawings on the walls and the floors, and then it became recognized as an art form, and they started making it on canvas, cloth, paper. Um, it talks about mythological, uh, ideas, religious ideas, and it talks about communities. That is what has been the themes of Madhubani paintings. So why have I put this painting up here? Because it shows a group of people. Uh, this is probably the god Krishna with a group of women. That's how he's usually represented. And it shows a conversation, it shows a community, and it shows information being exchanged. So, to my mind, that is what data is. It is simply an exchange of information, and it has been happening for millions of years. Every time there's a community or there is two people meeting, every time there's a dialogue, there is information and data being exchanged. So, what has changed now? We've always had data, we've always had information, and this is something the previous speakers have already spoken about, and that is the explosion of data. So when we look at the last 30 years, there's been an explosion of data, and today, when we look at just health related data, I mean, in 2020, it's supposed to be about 2,314 exabytes. And I'm sure it's, probably 10,000 exabytes by now. And this explosion in data has happened maybe in the last 30 years and more so in the last 10, 15 years. But this, I think, is known to this group. So, where does all this data come from? So, I decided to look at the patient care journey, what has been the traditional patient care journey, and what is the digital patient care journey. So, here we have the traditional patient care journey where the patient experiences symptoms. He shares these symptoms with family and friends, uh, does a consult with the family physician. The family physician, looks at his medical history, does a clinical examination, probably does labs and radiology, and then gives him a paper prescription. This patient then, goes to the local pharmacist, gets his medicines. Mostly these are small molecule medicines, and he is recommended certain lifestyle changes, which he hopefully makes. And if it is a chronic disease, then there is periodic physician follow up and medication adjustment. So, this is what the traditional patient care journey has been always. And what is this patient care journey now? So, you can see, I mean, I almost didn't have space to put everything in here. So even before diagnosis happens, even before the patient goes to the physician, he goes on disease apps, he goes to patient websites, he looks at influencer forums based on his symptoms, imagined and otherwise. And it is then that he goes to the doctor, to the physician. When he goes to the physician, it is not just labs and radiology, it's not a chest x ray, it is more than a blood test, okay? Now there are different imaging technologies, there are biomarkers, there are genes, there are mutations, there are point of care diagnostic, companion diagnostics, there is health technology which is involved. There is pharma and regulatory, which also inputs into both the diagnosis as well as the treatment. There is a lot of digital data which comes from the wearable devices, and soon it'll come from the Internet of Things. And of course, for a particular disease or for a particular patient type, there is data from EHR and claims database. What about the medicines? So where we previously had small molecule medicines, what we have now is we have peptides, we have biologicals, we have ADCs. We're talking about precision medicine. We're talking about patient phenotypes and genotypes, and how these phenotypes and genotypes will affect the patient's response to treatment. There's also home health management systems, and there is patient access programs and patient support programs, which pharma and health tech companies, provide for the patients. When we look at patient data, there is data which comes from registries, from health economics research and clinical trials. So where previously there was phase one, phase two, and phase three clinical trials. Almost all companies now are required, even in India, to do a phase four trial. Most of them set up registries for chronic diseases, which follow up patients over a long period of time. And of course, what we're looking at now is patient reported outcomes. So that's a big piece. So, whereas previously most drug trials only looked at, evidence from labs or radiology and from data that the physicians provided, almost every study now is looking at patient reported outcomes. And there is a divergence between what the physician believes is the patient's clinical status and what the patient reports in patient reported outcomes. This for two reasons. One is because what is important to the patient is different, probably, from what is important to the physician. And secondly, it's because some of the things are not captured just based on labs and imaging. So besides this, as I said, we have disease apps, patient websites, influencer forums. We have social media, which provides a lot of information and misinformation. And then we have artificial intelligence and machine learning, which inputs into this whole system. The prognosis of the patient also is impacted by data. So the patient can reach out to the physician virtually. The patient can track his disease through different wearable devices, and the patient can get enrolled into patient access, patient support programs, and be part of a patient advisory group. And patient advisory groups today are also inputting on how a trial is designed by a pharmaceutical company. And of course, the patient tracks his health on different devices. So, this is how the journey has changed, and we can see that at each stage and each point of this journey, there is a lot of data that is being made available. So, this is a publication from Austria which looked at the data holders, in Austria. And what they did is they looked at all the publications that is available, and they looked at who are the data holders. They then reached out to each of these data holders, and they spoke to them about data. They did interviews, and this is what they came up with. So what they found is that a significant portion of the data resides with the expert community, which is the healthcare professionals, hospitals, insurance institutions, and a lot with government organizations. And this is how it looks to you. So 60% of the data in this study was reported in Austria, was reported to come from patient data, which is purely clinical data. So obviously, when you have administrative data, that also is patient data, but it is not related probably to the patient's clinical status, or it is less related to the to the patient's clinical status. So you can see that all these data holders are, and the percentage of data with them is all coming from patient's clinical data. Therefore, what we can do is define data as a strategic asset. I think the speakers before me have talked about genomics, multiomics, they've talked about real world data, and I talked to you about the patient, sorry, goes back. I talked to you about patient reported outcomes and patient support programs. So initially we had the clinical trials, and now we have something known as adaptive clinical trial design. This adaptive clinical trial design is basically where historical data is taken as a control, and trials are designed with, the new trials are designed with historical data as a control. This is mostly done for rare diseases, and I think I will be just repeating what I said already if I take you through this. So, which are the different large spaces in which are impacted by health data or patient data? So, we've had drug discovery, which was previously a very linear process. It took about 10 to 15 years and cost billions of dollars. And what we have now is a data driven approach. So, what we have now is virtual screening of chemical libraries and predictive toxicology, all of which results in accelerated drug development programs. We've also seen collaboration. I think some of the speakers spoke about it. Collaboration across private, public, academia, tech organizations. In fact, a lot of tech organizations are working together with pharma companies to bring new products to the market. And all of this will probably help with speed, transparency, safety, personalization. We saw some examples of that during COVID. So when we looked at the COVID vaccine coming to the market, or we looked at any of the drugs which were in use for COVID, whether it's remdesivir, whether it's favipiravir, all these drugs were brought into the market with the help of the data that was available related to the disease and the treatment of the disease. The second piece where data has makes an impact is in bettering clinical trial outcomes. Okay, so right now what we're doing is we're looking at participants, we're looking at clinical trial sites based on the data that is available and seeing which of these is actually the best for an investigator. When we look at evidences, we're looking at clinical evidence, what the doctor says, what is the doctor's diagnosis, and we're also looking at patient reported outcomes, all of which leads to multiple levels of verification. And when we finally come to patient care, which is the most important piece of this, which is the most important reason of this whole exercise, we are seeing precision diagnosis and treatment. We have something known as precision PV. Precision PV is where instead of looking at drug safety across the community or across a disease spectrum, what we're looking at is personalized PV, which looks at what are the risks with a certain treatment modality for each of the patients. And all of this hopefully will help easy access, early access, and speedy regulatory approval for drugs, devices, vaccines, as well as diagnostics. So this is a chart which looks at the TGA, which is the Australian Health Authority, and how they did a 5-year study of their PV organization of the TGA did a 5-year study where they looked at what are the deficiency areas within the pharma organizations. And as you can see, 10 of those were critical areas, 180 were major. In fact, they inspected 9 pharma organizations in 2022. This is from 2017 to 22 and published in 2024. And what they found is, on an average, every alternate organization had critical findings. And each organization had, on an average, 3 to 4 major findings. I mean, I was told as a member of the medical affairs team that you cannot have critical findings when you're audited. I mean, your job and your department is at stake, and you cannot have more than maybe one major finding. So this looks to me like there's something that needs to be done here. So if you see, it's always the most simplest, like collation of adverse reactions, management of significant safety issues, and management of reference safety information, and above all, the quality management system which is at fault. So this is where data comes in handy to see what you measure is what you do, what you don't measure is what you don't do. So how do we assess data quality? We know there's a lot of data. We know that data is available. There's information and misinformation. So I think there's the FAIR principles, which looks at data which is findable, accessible, usable and reusable, and we also look at who are the data providers. Can we give equal importance to data which comes from different data sources? So obviously unequal representation, I think there was a question somewhere, unequal representation of data will lead to biased conclusions. So maybe that's something we need to take care of. When we look at data privacy and transparency, that's obviously a concern. Interoperability also, and also the frameworks that are available. So I think we talked about regulators making rules for the use of data, and we're not there yet, but it's a journey that we have to take. So this is a picture of patients of the retina of the eye of patients with diabetic retinopathy, and I put these pictures up here because there was a publication which said there is an eye art system, okay, known as eye art, which is an AI tool which looks at the retinal scans of patients with diabetes, and they found that it was more accurate in prediction of diabetic retinopathy changes than the human eye or the physician with a lot of practice. So it's an artificial intelligence detection of diabetic retinopathy, so the IART system. So this is a publication, and I think this finding has been replicated even for lung cancer and breast cancer diagnosis. And this is something that the Alphabet chief said that we would like to cut down the drug discovery journey from years to months and even shorter than that. So I think that's something that could happen. Uh, I don't know whether in our lifetimes or not, but it's something that we have to aim for. So these are some of the publications I looked at over the last 2 or 3 days. What's come up. Uh, so first and foremost, you have approval by the Japanese health authorities for Novocure's Optune Lua. So what is Optune Lua? It's a wearable portable medical device which produces alternating electrical fields and which is supposed to help with patients who have, recurrent or advanced lung cancer. This was another news item which talked about blood test which can diagnose 50 different cancer types, not diagnosis of prostate and breast cancer because these already have enough biomarkers for their diagnosis. And this was from Eric Topol's article where he talks about what is the future of prevention. So, currently, what we're looking at is vaccinations, we're looking at investigations which identify early chronic disease, and we're looking at promoting health behaviors. But the future could hold all these different things: organ clocks, personal health agents, a Gen AI prediction. We've heard, all of us have probably read about this, DEPFI 2M, which promises to tell us 10, 20 years in advance what are the 1,000 diseases that we could likely have. So, what are the future directions? We know that there will be integration of multiomics environmental data into the patient healthcare. Uh, Patient centric systems will be designed for drug discovery as well as for safety monitoring. AI will probably be used to, not probably, definitely be used to predict and personalize therapy. We have the challenges of data privacy, security, and of course, we need to have reliable insights which come from equal data representation. And finally, we need to engage patients in this whole journey. So, patient data, I think, is the cornerstone for both innovation and enhanced drug safety. All of this unlocks patient centric modes of treatment and patient centric modes of diagnosis. And most importantly, there needs to be a collaboration between academic institutions, researchers, healthcare professionals, and pharma and health technology companies. So I think that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the question is not categorically directed to this presentation, but in general, like I heard over the couple of presentations that have gone before, we hear the term that there is data explosion. Uh, I was just trying to figure out, and it's more of a question out of curiosity, you may or may not answer. what is the unit data that we are talking about? And is this data something that has been discovered? I mean, it was already existent and we know now, or it's something that has been created? I mean, I am just not able to comprehend what is that unit of data that we are talking about. Or is it the creation of knowledge everywhere that we refer to as data?
If I was to answer from the perspective of what I have seen as a clinician and in pharma, it's a bit of both actually. It's for example, one of the things we talked about in the patient journey is how the patient in the new digital journey, how the patient is, he experiences symptoms, and even before he goes to the physicians, he's going online to check his symptoms and how those symptoms, what is the diagnosis of his disease, what is the prognosis. So he is also leaving a trail, a digital trail. Some of it is information, some of it is misinformation. So we cannot say whether this is being created artificially or this is the real thing. I think that is where data and AI is struggling with now, and that's why I said that if we look at the data sources and we they are not adequately represented or they're not adequately defined, we come up with biases. I mean, I'm not a technology person, so I'm answering it from my perspective of what I understand is the current challenge with patient data.
Okay.
So, quick question.
Can I have one more question?
Just one more.
Yeah. We're talking about India, and thank you for the nice presentation. And but if you consider India, 80% of the population goes to the government sector, 20% of the population goes to the corporate sector, which is occupying, or the private sector. 80% money is there, but that means majority of the data lies with the government sector. There is data lying everywhere. Unless you are digitally transformed, this data is going down the drain. How are you going to digitally transform your PHC, CHC, medical colleges, tertiary care institutes, all onto a unified digital health platform, which the Prime Minister is speaking about? How are you going to achieve that task? My question for all the experts around here is, how are you going to achieve this hard task of digitally transforming your healthcare?
I'm sure I cannot answer that question, but I think one of the steps in that direction is the Ayushman Bharat and the ABBA number. I do know some startups which are actually using the ABBA ID to actually create patient care systems, which can be used across the spectrum of private and public healthcare. This is just what I know about. I don't know how effective it is. Yes, please go ahead.
So hi, this is Manisha from National Resource Center for EHR Standards in India. So what you are saying is we are looking at a very larger problem where we want to, most of it will be covered in my next talk after a few hours. But it's not that because of one thing it'll happen. There are so many things involved. We are talking about joining all the puzzles and make a big picture, larger picture. For a complete digital transformation, you need to have right policies. So policies are getting in place, are in implementation. Many have adopted, many are in process. We need to have right technology. Our country is the country of technology. So we have no dearth of technology, just that correctly implementing it. And then a right attitude of hospitals and clinicians to adopt the technology. And once you adopt, you practice the technology. So there's so many things involved for a good data to be captured and then leading to a digital transformation in the country. So everybody was talking about data explosion and all. Data is there at so many places, but not the information. So when you say data, just collect something, but don't use it for anything. And when you start taking insights into it, then you get the real gist of that data. That data we would say that as an information.
So how are we going to do this? So most of the healthcare in India is on paper.
Hmm.
To get it into AI, you need paperless.
Yes.
To get into paperless, you need a huge amount of investment, money,
Yes.
dedication, devotion, time.
Exactly.
Doctors and nurses don't have time.
So
They are overburdened, overworked. 70% of the time goes in documentation. What is the technology in place to reduce this documentation?
All accepted. Multiple initiatives are happening, multiple things are going on, just not at the government level, even at private level. I am sure many hospitals would also agree that they're trying to see how they can innovate, how they can use technology to reduce this burden, how various approaches, new approaches can be integrated or utilized
if I
to do
may,
this data capture. So
mention it, because that's a good answer, and I think where you're going, and what you're raising is a fair question. Absolutely, right? Maybe an anecdote might help. So I'm a foreigner, right? I'm already 20 years a foreigner in this country. When I came, I walked around in Bangalore on the electronic city, and somebody walked with a mobile phone in the hand. What was that mobile phone? That was a regular phone, like with buttons, and had a big antenna. Who recognizes that? Okay, I see several hands. They recognize that. Okay. How many years later was the average person in the street selling whatever, having a mobile phone in the hand? How many years later was that? That was 10 years later. Everybody's digital. Policies will happen. Technology will come. But who will do it? The people themselves, because people want to and people can. And the question is just how can we come together and pave that road? Because the road is not paved. So you raise the right question, but the question is how can I help? The answer to the question is how can I help? And when we all come together, we can pave that road to the patient-centric, data-driven, AI-enabled value chain. We have to make it together. That's where we are now. It's not done. It's the wild, wild west. And it's not only India, by the way, because the situation is similar around the world. The health ecosystems in the US, in Europe, and India, they all have their own challenges. And I think by all what we see, we lived up to something that we cannot even imagine today. And thank you so much for your presentation. Really very good.
Call upon Louis to hand over the momentum to Dr. Dashmukh. Thank you so much.
Dr. Sachin.
I'm Professor R.K. Singh from SGPJ Lucknow.
So
I head the Department of Telemedicine and Digital Health.
oh, okay. That's good. Oh, is that now?
So I think this ship has sailed, right?
Ah.
So we can go now to a panel session that I have the honor to be hosting. I've asked people yesterday on the panel or the day before to think about it and prepare. So we have a slide from each and every person. So what I would like to ask first is that each person presents a slide. Anila, I think you don't have it because
Yes.
you have two.
So,
Yeah.
so
So
this is
I'll work my way to the
emergency
pictures, but
medicine, so I do both.
with Nico, then Dr. Shiva, and then
So
Dr.
the
Vikram,
institution
then
is the
Anil,
technology
you as
institute.
last, and you can do it verbally as
Institution,
well. But
it's a 2500
can you
bed
put up the slide?
institute, tertiary care medical
And
institute.
Nico, may I ask you to step forward and talk to the part?
And it is looking for AI in healthcare, wanting to transform it. So the first hurdle is paperless.
It's your core specialization?
So maybe I should
Medicine,
do then a
emergency
quick
medicine,
introduction of
critical care
Nico,
medicine.
a fellow Dutch person in this room. I think we're the only two, maybe on the whole event. I don't know. Nico is counselor for health, welfare, and sport at the Embassy of the Netherlands, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, I have to say, in New Delhi. And very welcome to this event, Nico, and we look forward to your contribution.
while the presentation is being uploaded in the system, it's all about data, right? I think that already for now, one of the main keywords of today's event seems to be journey, right? I've been hearing either the words from Dr. Rashmi, for instance, the journey, but also from the audience, this very good question that you raised about the journey and who can play which role in doing this journey together. So this will, for me, also be my keynote for this afternoon about the journey from the Netherlands. And I will try to see how together we can engage, because indeed, as Louis rightly said, it's not only a question that plays in India, but also in Europe, specifically in the Netherlands. And I'll be very happy this afternoon to share our journey and giving some concrete examples and some concrete suggestions how we can relate to each other between India and the Netherlands, or also between India and Europe, because that's of another scale. Now, I got, in anticipation, inspired by this panel debate, and when Louis asked the panelists last night to prepare some slides, I did that very quickly in the plane from Delhi to Mumbai. And I think that's what Dr. Rashmi said about public-private partnership. I fully agree with Dr. Rashmi. And this is very quickly what I wanted to share. And it's very quickly a video, because maybe that's even more appealing than my words, of a very concrete public-private partnership.
Encode Accelerator aims to revolutionize the development process of cancer therapies. Currently, this is a high-risk and time-consuming endeavor, often resulting in new therapies only benefiting a subset of the intended patient population. Encode Accelerator is a dynamic collaboration of more than 30 public and private partners. Together, we leverage the full potential of the Dutch ecosystem by setting up development pipelines for 4 types of cancer therapies: small molecules, biologics, cell and gene therapy, and therapeutic vaccines. To accelerate the development of safe and effective therapies, Encode Accelerator places the patient at the center of these pipelines. We do this by fully utilizing the power of 3 innovation platforms: real-time data from well-defined patient cohorts, patient-derived tissue models such as organoids, and artificial intelligence to improve predictions from datasets. Our approach of integrating these platform technologies within the product pipelines will be validated by Encode Accelerator.
Okay. Some parts of the video we were missing, but maybe you got the idea. Why did I show this? Because for me, this is a very good example of a pathway from fundamental research to clinical application through an integrated data sharing. So if you follow this kind of working, the whole process from lab to patient goes 3 times faster. And what Louis was referring to, data sharing with a purpose, I think this is an example of data sharing with a purpose. Another one is our awards program. So just sharing that this whole OnCode program is stimulated by the government. So I work for the Ministry of Health in the Netherlands, and this OnCode program was stimulated and financed also to a great degree by the Ministry of Health, together with the Ministry of Economic Affairs. So also they're breaking out of the silos, which is one of the presentations later today I saw, so that you're not only focusing on better outcomes for health, but also better outcomes in economic terms by stimulating spin-offs for companies. Abort is another program that is very much stimulated by my Ministry of Health. This is about the personalized medicine approach for Alzheimer's disease. It's very much also focusing on an example of data-driven innovation, combining clinical data, but also biomarkers, lifestyle data, which also stressed by Dr. Rashmi, genetic data, all of that, also including pharma companies in the entire process, but also from the medtech, and a company like Philips was already mentioned in one of the previous keynote speakers. I think it was Dr. Vikram who mentioned it. And there you see what the interest is of a company like Philips to be integrated in this whole process of development for Alzheimer's disease. Again, an example of data-driven innovation with a purpose. And what is the purpose? That in 2050, the number of cases of dementia in our world will have tripled, right? So this is where we can join efforts, and it's not just a question of only one country, of only one region, but it's really a global development, and I think that today's platform is really wonderful to do this together. And I think this was everything that I wanted to share.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you. That's a good contribution to the cross-sector collaboration for better patient outcome, which is the intent for the session. Dr. Siva, your slides.
Thank you, Louis, and good morning to everyone. The topic of the panel discussion is bridging the pharma and healthcare across a sector of collaboration for better patient outcomes. I come from the medical devices background and more from the healthcare sector, and more focused towards meeting the customers and providing them the solutions that are required. So what I feel is very important is pharma, medtech, and the data need a convergence. Okay, that's very critical. Okay, this traditionally pharma, healthcare providers, and medtech, they have been working in silos, and this fragmentation has led to a lot of inefficiencies in diagnosis of the disease, treatment, and eventually the patient management. So an integrated ecosystem of data technology is very, very essential for improved patient care. So what is the role of medtech and AI in this one? Bridging the pharma and healthcare requires an ecosystem where drugs, diagnostics, devices, that is the medical devices, and the digital platform work together for patient-centric care. MedTech enables the, as we all know, that mostly early diagnosis, continuous monitoring, and generate actionable data for connecting the pharma innovation with clinical practice. Together, these sectors will shift the healthcare from volume-based to value-based. I think that is very, very critical, thus delivering a better and more sustainable patient outcomes. So what I have done is, I have put the role of all the three stakeholders here: pharma, medtech, and the digital health. So pharma has to go beyond the beyond providing just a pill or just medicine, and the companion diagnostics, the collaboration between the pharma and the diagnostics is very important. And very key part of it is the real world data, using the outcomes of the data to define clinical trials, personalized therapies, and support regulatory partnerships. This is very critical. Whereas on the medtech part of it is diagnosis, both in the early and accurate diagnostic detection, continuous monitoring using wearable and other point of care devices, therapy enabling devices, which uses infusion pumps, robotic surgery, etc. And medtech acts as a link between pharma innovation and healthcare delivery. And the artificial intelligence and digital health uh, gives the predictive analysis, personalized medicine, operational efficiency, and virtual healthcare ecosystems. So,
Three slides?
last one.
Just checking.
So ultimately, the integrated patient-centric ecosystem involves drug plus device plus data. Then this will give seamless integration, ensure that therapy is guided by diagnostics, supported by monitoring, and refined through data-driven insights. And patient lifestyle alignment, AI and medtech can bridge the gap between the patient life cycle and drug life cycle. So at the end of the day, it has to be delivering patient-centric, value-based healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siva. And I didn't properly introduce you, but Dr. Siva is an independent medtech advisor and mentor, and he's advisor to us at UW, really to the healthcare part. And I think Dr. Siva and I are aligned. We have to touch the hearts of the leaders in this community, and from there, hopefully, contribute to the change. Thank you, Dr. Siva. Dr. Vigan Patel, your how many slides? One. Excellent. Thank you.
So I've already spoken now relatively on what role of academia is doing, but still I would like to mention once again, we work on three pillars. One is clinical care, the second is academics, and third is research. So on the clinical side, I strongly believe it's all about real world data which the patient is generating that can be linked between academia, hospital, industry, and government. So when all of this work together, only then it can make a difference. And I think ODC in the chapter is a very good beginning where they are structuring the data. And if we can link this to ABDM, that can make a huge difference because ABDM is going to become a reality. It may take more time. As I already mentioned in the initial presentation also, there are already 81 crore ABA numbers which have been implemented. Maybe it has to just go in and become a reality. That last gap is missing, the last link is missing. So that, and already medical colleges are being enforced to make sure there are 800 plus medical colleges in India. They are forced to ensure that ABA is being implemented. If that becomes a reality, then probably we'll have more structured data across India. Similarly, a lot of courses, especially on health data science, have to start up so that we bridge that gap. We have somebody skilled to handle this large scale data. And also, we have to look into how interprofessional consortiums are there, interprofessional courses are there. To just add to this, actually, we are coming with our own global campus in Varuna, where very near Mysore, where we are focusing on how to bridge this industry academic gap, and we are setting up a 7-floor research block in which 3 floors of almost more than 1 lakh square feet we have dedicated just for industries to come and have their campus there offshore within the academia. So that's where integration between academia and industry should happen is what we are looking into. And also the next is all about research, and this research should be again collaborative research, industry-driven research, data-driven research, where we can look into having the next level, that is the precision medicine or precision nutrition kind of things which are more personalized. That can only come with we bridge the gap between patient data to pharma to healthcare products.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram. Dr. Anil, can I ask you to join? Dr. Anil Parikh, President, Medical Affairs and Clinical Research with IPCA Laboratories. And welcome for filling in the industry contribution in this discussion, bridging pharma and healthcare.
Thank you very much. I think I liked your introduction of the patient life cycle and the drug life cycle. So I will take from there. Uh, I have been as a healthcare provider. I'm working as a faculty in Topiola National Medical College, Nayar Hospital, Mumbai. Before
joining the pharma, which is in '87 I joined in Zipla, and I'm very fascinated about and very passionate about innovating in the in the space where to if you have to bridge pharma and healthcare, I think patient outcomes, that is a theme. So how patient outcomes can be improved is by one of the major method is by innovating in the space. So the drug life cycle doesn't end when it is launched. Actually, that is where the major journey for the healthcare begins. And I'll give you example at each level which I have personally experienced. So data has been there right from the beginning. So I have been there in the industry for more than 30, 40 years. But then data has been there previously also. Now data is now also. But the form of data and all that has changed. But the data was always there to innovate, and you need to innovate. So when I joined Cipla, I was asked to work on a drug called as norfloxacin, fluoroquinolone. That drug was only indication was urinary tract infection. So I was working on these drugs, and I came across in the journal that where in the ophthalmic space somebody has worked in vitro data where it showed good activity against the ophthalmic pathogens various. So I thought this could be an eye drop. So this was Cipla's first eye drop. So it was a good drug for urinary tract infection, but first eye drop. So this is how I hastened this launch of this product. So this is an example at the when the drug is introduced in the US market at the same time Indian market, because previously India was not recognizing the product patents from that era. Then I have been working in this company IPCA for last now almost 25 years, and has been an opportunity to innovate. IPCA has been marketing hydroxychloroquine internationally, exporting, but not there in India because it's a drug for malaria and rheumatoid arthritis. So it is used as a disease-modifying anti-rheumatic drug. So in 2001, I got it approved by doing phase 3 study. And then in 2017, JAMA, this prospective observational study from University of Pittsburgh, where rheumatoid arthritis patients have been prospectively observed for 22 years. And then with age, diabetes is more common. Here, patients who took hydroxychloroquine for 4 years or more, they don't develop diabetes. So this is the data. So then then this drug was repurposed for type 2 diabetes. So inflammation, chronic low-grade inflammation being common theme between rheumatoid arthritis and diabetes. So that's an opportunity to innovate. Then I had an opportunity to do the innovation in the hypertension. In hypertension, a drug like chlorthalidone, which is more than 60 years old product. So this was a largest hypertension trial done by National Institute of Health, NIH sponsored study, all head study, where chlorthalidone compared to newer drugs, and chlorthalidone came better than the newer drugs. So I was the only taker of this research, and today it's a drug which is very widely being used in hypertension. It is at the forefront of hypertension management. So these are few examples how we can improve patient outcomes. And data is the center of everything, but you need to, without any big data analytics, you can also use the data and improve patient outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Neill. I'm very happy that we've been able to establish this panel to discuss the bridging the pharma and life sciences, because it brings together industry, it brings together the hospitals and the universities, the healthcare perspective, as well as policy and the government representatives to work with that. I would like to start this off by actually going to the area where I'm probably most comfortable, which is in life sciences spaces. So I go to immediately to you, Dr. Anil. What can life sciences do to reach the patients better in bridging the gap between pharma and hospitals and academics? What can we do better than what has been done till date?
What can we do better is actually this is what is being attempted now. So we need to have the patient data. There are what is the ethnicity of the patient? Is the patient more prone to say a metabolic disorder like diabetes? So from the patient's various both anthropometric measurements or his phenotype and genotype. So if you have all this data, then you can manage the patient in a better manner. You can predict the disease in advance. You can also
Is IPCA undertaking things to make that data available to patients that use IPCA products, for example?
I think not with the patient, but obviously their caregivers is what we share the
Towards
data.
hospitals and
Yeah,
towards doctors?
yeah. So we share with the data with those who are our investigators, and then those who prescribe the product. Obviously, we need to share that data with them. Then only the further uses of the drug will come after uh, telling of this data. It may not be the individual patient data, but it's a data which is the cohort which is used in clinical studies.
Thank you. Just a quick check. Can I have a raise of hands of who is in the pharmaceutical or biotech industry here? 1, 2, 3. See, that's 4. 4, 5 with us. 6. So there's a small part of things. So if you have additional questions from the audience, they're very welcome. We will take them as well. When I move on to the academic and to the universities and hospitals, from that perspective, towards pharma, towards patients, what are the best steps that you see, what you're already doing and what you see in the future, Vikram?
Yeah. So, uh, from where I come, there are two aspects of what we can do for bridging the health pharma and healthcare that I see. One is obviously generating real world data which actually gives a meaning to the outcomes which are coming, whether the pharma industry wants to work on a particular product or which, as we keep on speaking, these personalized medicine kind of activities. So it all depends on the data that gets generated from the hospitals. The second perspective is we, for example, are one of the clinical trial centers for majority of the activities, which is a DBT recognized site. We did almost every COVID vaccine that was done in India was tested at our site. So hospitals can become a very good site for clinical trials of drugs which are happening. And what government of India has also done now is a hub and spoke kind of a model where centers like us, which are established centers, are now training other smaller centers so that these clinical trials are not centralized. They don't get information only from a cohort of people, but it gets from the wider geographic areas. So that's where these academia and hospitals can play a huge role in bridging this pharma and healthcare background, I would say.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram. I would like to see how many hands which resonate from hospitals and academics. Can I have a show of hands? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, actually less than the farm. Yeah, we have to work on that, Dr. Vikram. I moved to Dr. Siva as a healthcare person who really sees and understands the healthcare ecosystem in India as such. From that 40,000 feet level, what do you think? What's going right, good right now, and what can be done better to reach the patient in pushing the pharma and yeah.
India is a country where 70% of the population live in the 2 tier, 3 tier cities, and 70% of the infrastructure is in the urban area. So the gap is too huge. So we can say that the accessibility of healthcare is restricted. And in the rural areas or in the 2 tier, 3 tier cities, the infrastructure is not enough to provide the necessary healthcare that is required. So what is important is, in order to create the data and then for the pharma to use the information that comes from those things, you need to have the, since I come from medical devices and that is closer to my heart, I think it is very, very important that devices need to be developed that could be easily operated by the people in those areas, because the talent pool is not enough. Even a common man should be able to use those devices. So either point of care devices or easily operable devices need to be there, and those things should be connected to the through the internet or through the digital system, and the data can be generated, and the pharma company should use that and then take it forward. I think what is important for me is the devices, and unfortunately neither in India nor in some of the developed countries right kind of devices are still not available. I think there is a lot of work that need to be done.
Thank you for bringing this topic forward, and actually that makes me go to a follow-up question, bringing it back to the hospitals and to the industry. Does JSS here or Vigam yourself have a view on how to reach that 70% in India from an academic or hospital perspective, as Dr. Shiva is talking about?
Yeah, as you rightly pointed out, and even in my presentation, I did mention ours is a very fragmented ecosystem where the healthcare, predominant healthcare is still happening in the government sector, where it is in the primary health center or community health center level. And a majority of the hospitals are still not very equipped to handle digital data. But also with that, I would say that with the government push, especially on Ayushman Bharat digital mission, it may become a reality. Not with immediate future, but next 3-4 years or 5 years max, I would say India would be totally digital. That's what I see from. I'm sitting in the tier 2 city. I see a significant infrastructure there, but when I go to my primary health center, we have adopted certain villages where we see still there's no infrastructure. But I feel in the next few years, this will become digital and it will become a reality.
So from my perception, Dr. Vikram, if we look 3 to 4 years, dare to look 3 to 4 years into the future, what percentage of India would be covered? Would it then be 70%, 80%, 90%?
More than 70%, I would say. More than 70%, definitely.
More than 70.
I am strongly believing that more than 70% will do.
Anybody who wants to go for a higher number?
One point, Louis, I think, while Dr. Vikram is absolutely spot on in terms of the government programs, I think the private healthcare should also uh, uh, contribute to that, to ensure that the necessary steps are taken. Because most of the private healthcare, big hospital chains are all located in the urban areas. But I think they should also develop infrastructure and hospitals or small clinics in the rural areas. So that will.
Do you see some concrete examples of that happening, or is there something that still needs to be triggered?
Some of the groups are doing it. For example, I do not know that I can take the names, but for example, Apollo Hospital Group is doing it, and probably JSS is also doing it. So some of them have come up in that direction, but lot more has to be done.
Thank you. That's interesting. And from IPCA's life sciences company in India, I'm not 100% familiar with IPCA. How much of your business is local India and how much is outside of India?
I think around it is roughly 50-50. So 50% domestic and 50% international business.
And do you know the reach of your products and how deep it goes into the Indian market? Does it reach the smallest villages in the country?
Yeah, it goes quite deep, I can say, because IPCA is among the top 20. It is currently ranked 16th on the list of leading pharma companies in India. So it travels quite a bit. Not only that, some of our active pharmaceutical ingredients, if we say, so we have one of the largest producers of the some of the APIs are one of the largest producers in the world. So like hydroxychloroquine, certain beta blockers. So we are very big in some segments. So it reaches everywhere, right from US to a smaller country also.
Thank you. If you try to take that, Nico, to the European level, do you see the world seems to be so far apart from where we live and what we see here in India, right? if you look at, and you've been here for quite some time, so you understand the gap. What we here talk about from the top tier to the others as well, talk about the pharma and the healthcare gap to bridge that. What do you see here as what's going very well, and compare that to what we can do probably better still in Europe? Is there any similarity there?
How much time do I have to reply to this question? No, I think there are obviously a lot of similarities. There are also divergences, but there are very much. I think if we go back to the journey that you started off with, and that various experts in, but also participants related to this journey. So there are a lot of shared ambitions and also shared needs, because there are still a lot, also in the Netherlands, in Europe, in India, in the US, a lot of what we call unmet medical needs. And to reach, like in cardiovascular diseases, COPD, mental health, health for people with disabilities, a lot of unmet medical needs. And we've been doing a mapping in the Netherlands of what these unmet medical needs are. And I see a similar ambition and drive in India since I've been here. Previously, I spent 4 years in China, 4 years in France, 4 years in Brazil, where I saw also similarities. Is to meet these unmet medical needs and how pharma, how the medtech sector can play a role in this. And this is what we've been doing. One concrete example is that I've been traveling around in India since I arrived here, a little bit more than a year ago. What is happening in what we call labor-saving medical technologies and the type of innovations that are happening in India. And I went from 1,000 solutions designed and made in India to 149, and finally 49 that could meet the needs in the Netherlands in our healthcare ecosystem. We did this study throughout the patient journey, from prevention to early diagnostics, treatment, and monitoring, especially remote monitoring, right? What you were referring to. And we split these solutions in 3 cohorts. Cohort 1 is those Indian innovations in medtech, labor-saving medtech, that already have a European certification. Cohort 2 is those who have a certification, but not EU. And the third cohort is really very much in a pilot phase. So I think where we see the similarity, where we join this journey, is how through medical technology you can have a broader access to quality healthcare that is affordable, safe, and sustainable for a larger cohort of patients and citizens. Because it's not only patients, we are moving rather to providing health and not merely to curing diseases.
That's a very interesting perspective, and it gives a little bit of insights that the dynamic in India right now creates solutions that can be adopted around the world as such. And also the point, indeed, we don't want to be patients. We're all humans, and we're looking for preventative care. Hopefully, just the point what you made about the Alzheimer part, etc. And there I was wondering. Yes, it's rampant right now, but do we truly understand the causes of that as such? And would have when we work together in one ecosystem, we talk now about bridging the gap, but maybe once we made the bridge, can we create like a collected ecosystem where these type of things can be hopefully be prevented? Thank you for your contribution for bridging this part. I would like to give you one response of I say is that beyond the bridge, can we come to that one ecosystem where not the patient but the human is totally centric, and that we can have life sciences, medical devices, hospitals, everything together, truly focusing on that human being. Is that feasible? I go from left to right. Nico?
Yeah, what you mentioned, the example that I shared on dementia, I think that is exactly what we're doing, because we're combining clinical data, but also lifestyle data, biomarkers data, and genetic data. So working two things in parallel. One, prevention, learning how can we prevent people, citizens, from getting dementia at all. And in parallel, working on personalized medicine, in order to be able, one day we hope, to cure those who have dementia, because it will be unavoidable. For the moment, unfortunately, there is no cure for dementia. And because of the challenge that I mentioned, that the number of cases of dementia will have tripled, if nothing changes in what we are doing now, the number of cases of dementia in 2050, that's around the corner by the way, 2050 tripled number of cases of dementia. So this is where we should not work in silos or only focus on one country or one region. This is a global challenge where we really have to join our hands in order to accelerate these developments. Putting not just the patient first, but the citizen, the human being first.
Yeah, the philosophy is now from we previously we used to take care of the sick care to preventive care. I think that's very critical. When you go to the preventive care, multiple stakeholders come into the picture, and exactly what you said is quite valid. And everybody will come into that picture: life sciences, medical technology, hospitals. Everybody will come into it. Yes, I think it is sick care to preventive care. That's what is my.
Thank you, Dr. Siva.
Yeah, I would reinforce what Nico and Shiva said. It's all about holistic health now. We are looking into not only illness, we are looking into wellness of a patient or a human being as such. And it's not just medicines, it's about nutrition. As I was trying to tell you in the earlier also, we are trying to look into a project where we can you devise precision nutrition or based on the traditional foods that we are using. So that kind of an activity will happen in future, and it's all about consolidated effort by all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Vikram, for throwing that one into the mix, because as a company also we try to bridge indeed healthcare and life sciences, but I'm fully there with you that the food industry, where are they? And how are we going to pull them into the ecosystem? And just a little bit from my background so that people know, but I come from the farm. I'm an agricultural guy as such, and thanks to super milk quota I got into this stuff. Thanks to European politics I'm here. But bringing that food around, and then also what comes from the land and goes to the mouth, so to speak, that's a very important part of the ecosystem, and maybe that's where the Alzheimer challenge can be tackled for the longer term. Dr. Anil, from your perspective.
I would say that, as you were saying, India is considered the pharmacy of the world with so much, pharma production and all that. But we have 17% of the world population and 20% of the disease burden. So, and just 2% of clinical research activity. But if we see the amount of disease burden is there. So patients are there, clinicians are there, and investigators are there. Academic medical setup is, I think, to a large extent, because now the number of medical colleges has exceeded 700 or more than that, I think. So we have all the big corporate hospitals are there. So we can do much more clinical research, because from 2% we need to progress to at least much more there, so that more research happens and the patient outcomes improves. That's what I think.
Thank you, Dr. Neil. I have one more question then specifically for you, and then I'll give the opportunity for the audience to ask some questions. One of the things that we do, on the one hand, we say patient data is going to explode. On the other hand, we say substance data is exploding. And by the way, today, and you see that Mr. Larry Callahan has come in, Dr. Callahan, as the drug substance database as such. And we've been exploring if we can create a digital representation of Ayurvedic substances as such. Do you see a future for Indian life science companies somehow to embrace the potential of Ayurvedic substances and come with, is that an area that life science companies in India are looking into, whether there is a future?
I think for the Ayurvedic, there is a potential. Obviously, there is a huge potential, but then they need to, adopt the modern technologies so that you have a reproducibility of the results. You have some clinical, data which is there with them. So nobody has generated enough clinical data. It is there in the text, but then you have now modern means to generate that. So somewhere it has to be, that needs to be bridged. How a particular which is knowledge which is there, traditional knowledge, how it applies in the modern context.
Can I say
data
it,
can be generated and it all comes to data.
can I say it in such a way that we need to create the science around the anecdotes that everybody has in this country? So with that, to the floor. Anybody with questions?
So this is Ram Kumar here. Thank you, Global Value Web. This is actually closer to my heart. One of the things that we are working, as I previously mentioned, is making sure that we can give the data to the doctors. And I'm going to quote what I'm reading from the NIH. This was a paper that was presented last year. Medication errors rank as the most frequent and avoidable source of patient harm. And roughly close to 100K patients in the United States. That's what the data shows from this one. So we thought, okay, why not we do this in India? And one of the and in the US we have FDA approved drugs. They're able to get all that into something called model control protocol for the AI model to understand all of these things, and they are all structured. But when it comes to India, we wanted to actually, we thought, okay, let's give that to the overall community that everybody can benefit out of it, every doctors can see it, they can see the value of drug interactions. But what we are noticing from a technology point and also data standpoint is there is no clear medication that is available where I can look at a generic drug and find out what are the like for example, how to use it, drug usage instructions. I have tried 1mg.com, whatever the sites that I could think of. Is if there's something that we all can collectively work together to come up with some kind of standard on the pharmacy side that will help all of us on the technology front as well.
That's a good one. You mentioned it earlier as well. Standards. Anybody want to respond to this question? Do you see standard coming about that makes a difference? You have the microphone, Vikram, you want to try, or should I pass the microphone to somebody else?
Side actually. I'm more from the end user side. I would say I would need a standards actually speaking on this. Yes, we at academics we also start look into these aspects actually. We as academicians and researchers we try to focus and see if we can come up with solutions like this. We have tried internally, but about how we can look into medication error prevention or drug error prevention, even looking into how we can build it in for our own ecosystem. But at a national level, at what he's asking for, I think that I'm not the best person to judge. I would say maybe.
Probably, I'm actually not asking for a standard. We can come up with a standard. We are all technology people. We can come up with a standard. What I'm looking for is pharmacy to put that information out there. It can be unstructured data. We are okay to get the unstructured data, but if the pharmacies can put that in the public domain, where we all can look at it, that is what I'm looking for.
So I see some hands that want to respond to that. Larry, you want to respond to that?
One of the problems with drug labels, I mean, I worked at FDA for a long time, and one of the things is that FDA doesn't own the drug labels. The pharmaceutical companies own the drug labels. And it's really a tragedy in many ways. In Europe, the EPAR or the SPC is usually the EMA prepares that and things like that. One of the big problems with drug labels, at least at FDA, let's say you have a new drug. It's going to list the interactions with the old drugs. But then you go to the old drug label, it says nothing about the new drug. So physicians make mistakes if they really practice by our labels. Luckily, there's systems like Lexicom and Micromedics that, sometimes pick it up, sometimes they don't. The other problem is when you're right, I mean, adverse events are, it's the fourth or third leading cause of death in the US from drugs. It's probably the second leading cause of urban emergency room admissions. And a lot of it is due to polypharmacy, where people are taking, my mother takes 18 drugs. I mean, how the hell can you keep track of that? And those are the issues.
I think there's a lot of truth in there that we don't want to bring that future to India. He answered the question. So one last, okay. I see a lot of hands. I also have to mind the clock. So I propose this. We take 3 questions. And after that, we have a network break, and we can all discuss about that. And that takes about, we have to cut the show maybe 20 minutes, and then we try to continue with the session. So you have the mic now. Please also introduce yourself quickly.
Okay, my name is Edwin Rosham. I come from pharma AI background. Looking at the bigger picture, right? I remember Rajendra mentioned we have a lack of data culture, and also Rashmi mentioned critical findings. Pharmaceutical or anybody doesn't like to show critical findings. So what I'm getting here is we as all should have that kind of a data culture, or be willing to share even the data which we don't like to share. So in a way, as in healthcare or people who are, what I would urge is we should be able to have data transparency from this learning, and we speak truth to the authorities, that's where it all matters, and speak to the patients as well. So that's where I would say that's my learning from this thing, and thank you for. And I really like what you mentioned, Vikram, in terms of personalized, integrative, or indigenous medicine. And I think you're rightly sitting in between a pharmaceutical person and a medical device.
Was there a question in there, or was there?
Data transparency.
Yeah. So I was actually very curious to understand from the Nordic point of view, because most of my examples actually comes from the Nordic examples there. Because paracetamol, that has been reported to have induced a lot of side effects, and this particular data comes from 1,85,000 mother-child pairs there, and this comes from a Danish cohort there. And I think this type of data is only possible only because this Nordic countries are very well aligned with their harmonization of the data sets there, which is not available in Indian data sets there. So I was trying to expect some examples from Netherlands also, because I had visited the Netherlands brain bank. It's a phenomenal brain bank. Whenever a person actually is likely to met an accident, and if they immediately get a message in the brain bank that this person has met with an accident. In case he is declared brain dead, he's brought to the hospital, to the brain bank, and then immediately take out the brain, and it's available anywhere in the world to be supplied for the brain to be available. That's one aspect that I was expecting. Other aspect that I was expecting is that from like JSS has done a lot of data, but did you literally try to predict about what is the emergence of the disease, prognosis of the given patients? Because we have done a similar data set analysis of 204 countries there for stroke and its comorbid conditions there. And we found that stroke, for the stroke, the comorbid condition, hypertension is the major driving force for risk in stroke in Asian countries there. But for Americans and Europeans, it's the diabetes and cholesterol, which is the major driving force for stroke risk there. So this is what the data can really predict about the emergence and the risk factors for drivers for the given disease. So therefore, this type of information would be very, very informative if we all really get together to build up a digital platform for databasing.
So there's a lot of comments, right? I think what this indicates is that we need to sit together and talk much more. And what also Rajendra Gupta was saying earlier, and I really like the idea, if we create like a community and we come together in cities and create a community that can discuss this. We have the Odyssey community. Why can there not be a patient-centric, data-driven AI-enabled community? Last question, I hand it over to the gentleman over there with a big heart for to reach the whole of India.
Okay. Thank you for the chance to speak in front of such intelligent data analysts and data savvy people. One gentleman was talking about drug errors. Now, the fastest way of reducing the drug errors in any way internationally is CPOE, that is computerized physician order entry, and the barcode management of delivery of the drug. These are the understandably the best way of reducing drug errors. But again, when I talk of CPOE, you're talking of EHR enabled CPOEs. Most of the hospitals in India have an admission data, a discharge data, the care data is zero. There is no care data. What's happening to the heart rate? What's happening to the ventilator settings? What is happening to the EKG, the PACS? All this is care data. So you have admission data, everybody wants to enter it. You have a discharge data because everybody wants to discharge the patient. You have investigations, labs, and everything integrated. But the care elements, which is the largest bite of the data within the hospital,
Can you
is
transfer that in a question for?
So the question is, how do I pass the hurdle? How do people, intelligent people sitting in this audience, help me pass this hurdle?
Yeah, we do encounter this problem, as he rightly mentioned. A majority of our hospitals have admission and discharge summaries, that's it, and lab reports. But day-to-day recording is not happening in majority of hospitals. But slowly, larger corporate sector hospitals have started capturing majority of the data. It's complete EMR, and probably even smaller hospital like we also do the same what he mentioned. Probably by January we are trying to move to complete EMR. So these are small steps we are all taking. Probably it will take a little more time than expected, but it is happening. I would still reassure on this.
Thank you. And I would like to add to that, I think the challenge is not only in India on the care data. I think that's a global problem anyways. Okay, one more gentleman, he says that he has a question. So I'll give you the mic to raise your question. The last question of today for the panel, for this panel.
Sorry, I'm Masarat. I think I'm the only representative from Africa. I'm from Ethiopia, in East Africa. And yeah, I'm working in the pharmaceutical sector, especially I'm working for an international NGO, fortunately, which is funded by the government of Netherlands. And it's nice to meet with Mr. Enrico. So our project is supporting the health facilities, pharmaceutical supply chain management, especially by introducing a digital solution to digitalize the pharmaceutical supply chain management from health facilities to the different suppliers. So what we are doing is we are digitalizing the.
But can you bring it to a question?
Yeah, my question is maybe if from the panelists, if you have any context or if you have any experience in the low and the middle income pharmaceutical supply chain management and the role of digital solution to have a very good data which can be a good for to have a better patient outcome. So by improving the pharmaceutical availability at this facility, which is very crucial for the provision of health care. Yeah.
Is there, who wants to respond to this question of the panel? Who may ask? I think the panel is very hesitant about the question. But it also shows that...
I don't mind replying. It's a reply that maybe is also valid for the gentleman here on my right-hand side. It's not trying to get the easy way out, but as I said earlier during my introduction for the panel, this afternoon I will be giving a keynote on our journey in the Netherlands, how we go from a purely data exchange to a completely federated network integration. I will mention some examples and some illustration on how that works. And so that might lead to some further discussions where we then can deep dive a little bit further on a bilateral way or during the networks, and after to see how that can be relevant for you or how it really does give an answer to your concrete question.
Thank you, and good for pointing that out and creating the awareness for this afternoon. And I really want to thank the panel for the contributions, and I also want to thank you as an audience to join in, share your views, and raise your questions, and share your views especially. So thank you all, and may I have a hand for the gentlemen. Thank you.
I request Louis to hand over the momentum to our panel.
This is my card. So I work in the space of like interested towards digital health. Yes, no, basically into coaching and training on digital health aspects of training,
So you
implementing
help
EMRs.
digitally transform data.
Yes.
Nice.
Thank you.
If I may take like 2 minutes of your time.
Yeah, please.
That is a problem that one of the hospitals, they said